video. According to multiple sources, after the NYPD confiscated Anthony Weiner's laptop, which was filled with Huma Abedin's emails, they continued their search and discovered the property of Hillary Clinton in the form of emails that implicated her and Bill in the most heinous and serious of crimes. You remember Anthony Weiner, the former congressman who served New York's 9th Congressional District, who was caught sexting with a 15-year-old girl. An NYPD source allegedly just claimed that within the emails on that device, Hillary and Bill are directly implicated in a massive child sex trafficking ring, along with their friend and convicted pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. We'll come back to Epstein in a second. According to the source, quote, "It's much more vile and serious than classified material on Weiner's device. The emails supposedly detail the trips made by Weiner, Bill, and Hillary on their pedophile billionaire friend's plane, the Lolita Express. We're talking an international child enslavement and sex ring," end quote. Guys, if this is true, this is huge. If these emails contain evidence pointing to Hillary's sexual escapades with minors, she may not only find herself doing time, this wicked chick could end up on death row. Now, these claims were supposedly backed up by other NYPD sources. Back to Jeffrey Epstein. He's a level 3 registered sex offender, and the media ignores the fact that Bill Clinton flew 26 times on Epstein's private jet and allegedly visited Epstein's sex slave island. Again, if it turns out to be true that Hillary has also been directly implicated, it's going to be interesting to see how the bought and paid for media chooses to handle this heinous scandal. Now, supposedly, the NYPD source makes specific claims about her involvement. He says, quote, "Hillary has a well-documented preference for underage girls, and Mr. Weiner could not bear to see those details deleted," end quote. Again, guys, if this is true, it could be that Weiner kept these emails as leverage in case he one day in the future needed to blackmail Hillary. Maybe to save his life, maybe for personal gain, whatever. And how does this lying criminal choose to weasel her way out of the newly reopened FBI investigation into her criminal activities?
It is pretty strange. It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election.
Hey Hillary, why would it be strange to do that before an election? People deserve to know if the person they're about to cast their vote for is a dang psychopathic sexual predator.
It's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling.
But maybe we think your criminal actions are more unprecedented and deeply troubling.
Because voters deserve to get full and complete facts.
If you really believe that, Hillary, and I know you don't, then you wouldn't have deleted over 30,000 emails after you were subpoenaed by Congress to turn them over. So much for transparency.
And so we've called on Director Comey to explain everything right away, put it all out on the table.
Great idea, Hillary. Let's put it all out on the table. First, explain how your BFF, Huma Abedin, who has direct ties to Islamic jihadists, who once wrote for a radical Islamic journal, of which her mother is still the publisher, and who desires to forcefully impose global Sharia law, got a security clearance. Describe to us Huma's relationship with her pedophile husband, Anthony Weiner. Help us understand how you and Bill have such a close relationship with another pedophile, billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. And as long as you're putting it all out on the table, tell us about your logged flights to the Bahamas aboard Epstein's sex slave plane, the Lolita Express. Guys, as you research and uncover the facts of Hillary's criminal involvement, consider listening to this recent viral video by Steve Pieczenik, a former U.S. State Department official, as he explains Bill and Hillary Clinton's attempt to take over the United States and how they'll stop at nothing until they've done so. There's a lot of information coming out very, very quickly. So much so that it'll make your head spin. If we want to shatter the deceptive mirror constructed by corrupt politicians and popularized by the bought and paid for mainstream media, we need to keep our wits about us as we weed through all that information and herald the truth. Remember, it's easier to deceive the masses than to convince them that they've been deceived, because truth will always be viewed as treason in the empire of lies.
The unmasking controversy and also the president's immigration dealings this week. Join me here in Los Angeles, our syndicated talk radio host, Leslie Marshall, and Steve Hilton, former advisor to the British Prime Minister David Cameron, host of The Next Revolution here on Fox News Channel. Thanks for having me in Los Angeles.
I know. Thanks for keeping my seat warm till Sunday.
It's a wonderful studio. Let me start with the unmasking. Leslie, do you think Devin Nunes has owned an apology after what he said about the concern, and now Susan Rice admitting to what was done?
No, I don't. I think he fanned the flames of this a bit because, first of all, specifically when you look at unmasking and when you look at the policy of unmasking, the one organization that has the most exceptions to the norm with unmasking is the NSA, of which Rice was a former advisor. So I feel that she not only was within her right, I think a lot of what we're seeing today are the terms like illegal. This is not a criminal activity. And in addition to that, this is procedural. And then when you have, honestly, for me to agree with Trey Gowdy ever when he said, look, she did a good job, and they don't find any problem after what was supposed to be a closed and secret, as we just heard, testimony with what they found that she did, well, then, I mean, sorry, if high-ranking Republicans don't have a problem with what she did, then I think Nunes is not owed an apology. If anything, he owes her an apology because he fanned the flames of this.
I guess there's a lot of people looking at this and saying, if this was a Republican administration that had done this, think of the outroar and the press coverage. This really hasn't been anywhere this week.
Exactly, and I think that I think this is going to run and run. It's not the end of the story by any means, and we'll find out whether it's legal or illegal. But it's certainly wrong. And what it tells you is this incredible arrogance on the part of the insiders, as they were, and the outgoing administration. I think at this point, still not quite believing the election result, not believing that in their view, this bunch of rookies have taken over and are deigning to have meetings with other countries and fashion a new independent policy different from theirs. It's just that arrogance, and I think that that's what will really annoy people about this evidence that they just didn't take the incoming administration seriously enough to let them do a new foreign policy.
All right, let's turn to immigration, DACA specifically, the negotiations ongoing. Today, the president tweeting out, chain migration cannot be allowed to be part of any legislation or immigration. A direct result, Leslie, of some of the GOP pushback. Here's just a taste.
I actually don't think the president has changed his mind on the wall, but he has telegraphed a diminishment of the resolve that we saw in him as a candidate.
If the president did make a deal, we've still got to do what we do on Capitol Hill.
There are 535 members of Congress that weren't a party to the conversation.
Does he not recognize that this is the same group that truly wants him impeached?
That's hard to dispute.
You can't have the legalization first and a promise that we're going to do something else, because who believes Washington will keep a promise?
So a lot of uproar, but the deal seems like it's kind of moving forward.
The deal is moving forward, but here's the problem, and I think it's one of the reasons the Gang of Eight failed years ago. Immigration is huge. And the issue is not just DACA, it goes beyond DACA. You have right now 4 proposals, right? You have one from Democrats, and you have one from more moderate Republicans. And the president has been very clear in one respect. I mean, last week he says he loves Dreamers, and then he's using this immigration hardliner language, which really concerns me, quite frankly. But when you look at what he says has to be a part of the deal, and many Republicans do, and that is border security. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean a wall? Are we talking about visas? Are we talking about the people that are in this country? Because some people say, well, worry about the people trying to get in. We've got to deal with the people in this country. And then some people say in the Republican Party exactly the opposite. We need to worry about people trying to get in. Yeah. This is, I don't think this is going to happen. And I think the DACA, these Dreamers, are in a very bad position because the timeline is impossible.
He's made a pledge, Steve, about the Dreamers, saying they don't have to worry about it. He could be approaching this piecemeal, and he's clearly trying to make a deal. He is a different animal for the people inside Washington on either side of the aisle to look at.
That's right. And I think that actually this is the piecemeal approach is the right approach. because fundamentally public support for immigration depends on control of immigration, and immigration has been out of control, and that's why there's such strong feelings about it. Now, if you're going to reassert control over immigration, then you have to do that piece by piece, and if you're going to fight a battle, don't start by throwing out the most sympathetic part of the immigrant population, the dreamers. And so I think actually both propositions are true. We should legalize the position of the dreamers, but we also need to control immigration, and that means border security.